Well, as I mentioned, what I did was I reviewed Mr. Sowell's service record book, which has various pages that I believe are going to be introduced in evidence, and I'll explain them as I go through them. I also reviewed what's known as his OMPF, which is his official military personnel file. And those are files that are maintained by headquarters of Marine Corps in a federal depository in St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay, now, sir, let me ask you, what would qualify a young man, a young teenager, to join the United States Marine Corps? What qualifications does a young man need?
Well, I don't mean to be flippant, but other than breathing and walking, a certain amount of intelligence. Normally, the Marine Corps would like to have young men that are at least high school graduates.
Okay.
On occasion, they'll be.
Is there an age requirement? I guess
17 with the parents' consent, 18 on their own.
Okay. So if you're under 18, you need your parents' consent, correct?
That's correct.
And if you're 18, you can sign up on your own.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay. And what about Mr. Sowell? When did he join the Marine Corps?
He joined the Marine Corps on the delayed entry program, which is for younger men, and it gives them the opportunity to sign up, but they can delay when they actually go on active duty, and he entered active duty in January 1978.
Okay, so you're saying, sir, that Mr. Sowell really signed it, or he enlisted prior to being 18, but he couldn't actually join, correct?
Right.
Okay, he had to wait till he became 18 to join, is that correct?
No, actually, that's not correct.
I'm sorry, thank you.
If he's 18, he can go in at any time.
I'm sorry, you're under 18.
Right. It's my understanding he was 18 when he signed, when he went in, but he delayed his entry simply as for his convenience normally.
Oh, I see. Okay.
The recruiters normally are just happy to get him to sign the piece of paper, so if it takes a few months to let him stay at home, they're happy to let him stay at home for a couple of months.
Okay. Do you have the exact date, sir, Mr. Sowell actually reported for duty at Parris Island?
I think it was January 23rd, 1978.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, January 23rd, 1978.
Okay. When Mr. Sowell joined the Marine Corps and reported for duty, I should say, what happens next to a Marine who signs up and is as they say, toes on the line? What happens next, sir?
All enlisted Marines that enter the United States Marine Corps go to recruit training, are assigned to a recruit battalion, which is part of a recruit company that's part of a recruit battalion. And we only have 2 Marine Corps recruit depots in the United States. One is Parris Island.
One more time.
We only have 2 Marine Corps recruit depots in the United States. One is located at Parris Island, South Carolina, and the other is located at what we call MCRD San Diego. Mr. Sowell went to Parris Island.
Okay, now, just so the jury's clear and the court's clear, what happens when a young recruit gets to Parris Island?
You mean after the shock?
After the shock and all, what happens, sir?
Well, then they go through a period of instruction that involves, I don't know how else to say it other than some pretty heavy-duty physical fitness. Enlisted Marines are trained very specifically to follow orders, so probably for the first 6 to 8 weeks, they don't do anything unless they're told to do it. They don't respond to anything unless they're asked to do something. The basic philosophy is to break all civilians down and then build them up. So that's exactly the way it's done. Discipline is the cornerstone of the Marine Corps for recruits. I don't think it takes a lot of rocket scientists to figure out that if a member of the Marine Corps has to respond exactly when they're told. If you reflect upon things, if you think about it too long, you're not going to do it.
Okay.
And we don't want any hesitation.
You know, I'll be fair to say, sir, that not all the recruits actually finish or complete basic training, correct? Is that fair statement?
Absolutely. Officer training, I know the attrition rate runs at about 40%, and with enlisted Marines, it runs at about 15%, depending on what year you're talking about.
Okay. So just so we're clear again, you were a Marine Corps officer, is that correct?
Correct.
Mr. Sowell was not an officer. He was an enlisted Marine, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And how did Mr. Sowell do with basic training?
He did exceptionally well. I have to say, when I reviewed his records, the first thing that stood out, and one of the reasons I agreed to come here, was to point out to you that Mr. Sowell was promoted meritoriously to private first class at the end of recruit training. And that's an extreme distinction. Under normal circumstances, only one Marine out of a platoon, and Mr. Solo's platoon had 55 Marines. Only one is meritoriously promoted, so you have to serve with extreme distinction. The problem is there's no way really for any way to kind of characterize what he did to distinguish himself, because they don't make a record of that in recruit training. The mere fact that he graduated and walked out with a stripe in his arm just means that he graduated with distinction. It's not unusual for a platoon to graduate and to have no honor man. That's what it's called, an honor man. It's very out of the ordinary for a platoon to graduate and have 2 honor men. In Mr. Solo's case, there was 1 honor man, and that was him. And that means that he distinguished himself to the extreme. It's quite an accomplishment. I can tell you, I didn't come close.